Okay, so I just decided that I wanted to get this out there and share this and just let everybody know. Um, I want to talk about a dream I had. I'm going to tell the dream first, exactly as it happened, with as much detail as possible without really explaining it necessarily, and I'll get to the main core of the meaning afterwards, but what I think it revealed. But basically, in the dream, the entire world was filled with water, kind of like Earth, if you think about it. There was a vast amount of it, really everywhere. And throughout the water, there were enormous wooden structures, kind of like platform decks, walkways, staircases, a lot of levels. Everything was constructed out of wood, even though this wood didn't seem really sturdy. It was just there, kind of cheap and made and meant for whatever. It felt almost like a water park, but more rigid and controlled and no fun. At the highest level of the structure, there was one extremely long, thin, white table. Behind the tables were these authority figures that seemed almost governmental and official. They were serving food. All of us that were within this world needed to carry a ticket or something that looked quite like a receipt to exchange it for food. And no one, no matter how you arrived or what you received, once the exchange was over, you were required to exit on the nearest water slide back down to the lowest platform. And no one stayed at the top other than these governmental officials or the people running this system. So when I reached this most upper platform, I took note. There was a lot of people there. Specifically, one person caught my eye. This was an elderly black woman who was laying on the ground, clinging with her whole life to her ticket. She was appearing to be almost near death, weak and exhausted, as if her only will, only her sheer will to live was even keeping her there. So I realized as I was there, I wasn't even hungry. But I walked over to her with the intention to help get her some food. She clearly looked like she couldn't. We exchanged a glance and a few words, and she handed me her ticket, trusted me to get her some food. And I looked down at the ticket. It was this ordinary white receipt paper, but printed on it, kind of like all the rest of them, was just her last name in all capital letters. Her last name was White, White. There was absolutely no first name on there, but it was basically like a meal ticket. And I took the ticket and I walked towards this very long, white, thin table. And it finally became kind of like my turn, stepped behind the table, and this woman who had, I would say she was tall. She had like sandy blonde hair, medium length, wavy. And she told me with disdain that white people needed to go to the back of the line. At that moment, I kind of dialogued with myself. I wasn't even in this line for myself. I was here for someone else, for someone who was black and someone who had every right to have food. And yet, because I was not black, I was being told to go to the back of the line. So I threw the ticket down and I immediately overturned the table. And the kicker is that when I overturned the table, it overturned the table for everyone. Everyone, because we're all connected. And all people there took notice because they were there to survive too. And some people stood with their mouths agape and expressions horrified, like I would dare do something like that. And it felt clear to me that many of them believed that I was overturning the table because a lot of them were black and they had managed to secure this place in society, and that they felt because I was white, the actions that I was doing was against them. But they didn't know the whole story anyways. Behind the table, when I did this and I overturned it, the officials became enraged because it upset sort of like a status quo. Their anger felt almost like, I guess the nearest word to describe it was demonic. And so I decided that I was getting out of there. That, I ran towards this water slide that we're all required to leap onto and go down. And I can remember going on this water slide, and as I descended, I was kind of like losing my footing because we're kind of required to sloppily go back down to the bottom where the system tells us that we start from. And it was just a slip, slidey fall, and uncaring, just a bunch of uncaring. So I get down to this platform. It's, I don't really notice anyone else is around there, but what I do take notice of is there's a water canal, and inside this water canal are a lot of these foundational like platforms that are built from the sturdiest wood I'd ever seen. and they were topped with the lushest green surface. It was so perfect, it looked unreal. It was like artificial turf, bright, manicured, and beautiful. And the contrast between the endless water, the heavy wood, and the vivid green was so striking. But nobody was using these platforms. So I grabbed one and I took a hold of a navigation pole, often kind of like the ones you see depicted in pictures of people steering gondolas. And I moved through the water down this canal to what seemed to be an opening. And I thought, but this is where they told us the lowest level was, but I knew better than that. So I went through, and this platform, the structural platform, seemed to fit right through the opening. But it led to another downward, like descent. And it was at lightning speed, but it was very controlled. I'd never once lost footing on this platform. And as I got to the bottom, I saw people around of all types, people of every race. And there was only very few of us down there. And we exchanged glances and looked and shared an understanding. And then the words, "we must dissent," echoed through my mind. And I was still within the world, still within the structure, but I was at a place where they said didn't exist, basically. But it felt like only a handful of us that arrived there actually understood truth. And then I woke up. So I was left with my thoughts afterwards. And I don't think the dream was about leaving the system. No one leaves this until death. Clearly, we're here. And this was about dissent. Not in a chaotic manner. The world being full of water matters. Water represents kind of like life, emotion, reality itself. And instead of adapting to the situation, the dream showed us that building rigid wood structures over it, controlled pathways, and imposed over something that's fluid and alive, control of life itself. The long white table represented centralized control over basic human needs like food. It was treated as a reward, but food is actually survival. It's a human right. And the elderly woman herself didn't just represent the populations en masse. It represented another issue that's happening in the United States, at least specifically, and for me. And for a lot of us, it is the fact that she was elderly and black, and that I am white is significant here, because it showed humanity at its most vulnerable and the different perspectives that we had. Because I was able to walk and she was vulnerable, this could be like a metaphor. Her clinging to the receipt, obviously showed systems reduced people to survival, permission, paperwork, compliance, and appearance. The name on the ticket was white in all caps, no first name, revealed how identity becomes flattened into categories that override individual reality. When I overturned the table, this wasn't hatred. It was refusal to bow to the way things are and that have created people to perceive things on one side or the other. I was not trying to leave the system. I was trying to force change within it. And my internal thoughts were simple. Like, this woman deserves it as much, but she can't get it because I might be viewed as an enemy. Or many black people view white people as an enemy. But in all reality, they don't know the whole story. I too had to climb up the steps. I'm just at a different point in life where I'm younger than her. And I think many black people in the system tend to view themselves at certain points as oppressed or being held down by the white man. But here I was, without everybody knowing the story, trying to help her get food, and that's all I was trying to do. And I understood that through this dream, the experience was to other people who are not in the situation, this can be very misleading and it can look differently. Oh, the white person is complaining and overturning everything because that's white privilege. When in all reality, I've always been somebody to fight against racism, and I never believed that we should be that way. But this is what happens when you become a catalyst for change. You have a target on your back. A lot of people want to ignore, everything and just see it from their own perspective and never step outside of that. But, the first descent placed me at this platform where the system claims we begin. And even from there, the foundations already existed, strong, ignored, and unused. And the final drop led to a place where very few people had gone. Not because it was hidden, but because it required dissent. The ones who were there understood something clearly. Dissent is not chaos, it's clarity. It is refusal to let controlled systems override human dignity. The dream did not tell me, basically to disengage. It told me that when systems become morally inverted, disruption can be an ethical act. Not to destroy people, but to expose injustice. Not to abandon humanity, but to defend it. And, I guess that's kind of my whole point of view. I understand many people are fatigued with the racial tensions that's going on. And in all reality, I hate to be the one to say this, but our government, our systems, the bipartisan is the bigger problem. It is what is causing the oppression. Think about it. We have a lot of people on the left who are absolutely lost their damn minds. But the problem is they don't realize that they've been victimized by the very left side that they support. And other people might say this and go, oh, she's white, obviously a Republican, obviously a MAGA, or whatever have you. I'm actually a centrist. Depending on the issue, I can go left, I can go right, but I never fully jump over to the left, nor do I fully get sit on the extreme right, because both extremes are toxic. We're talking about morality, human rights, and dignity. I can even bring up something by mentioning homelessness. What do we do in this country with homelessness, no matter what your skin color? We complain about it and get people to send the police to remove people and displace them. I'm sorry, but we act like this is the Wild West, but this isn't the Wild West. Where, with no services, do you want these people to go? We've ousted them. They have no place to go, no social services, no nothing, because that's too communistic and socialism. You know, I really want to mention this, but those of you who do not like socialist movements, you have more in common with Hitler than I do. And that's saying something. Hitler didn't like communism and socialism either. Understand that communism has also been distorted. Anyway, that's a subject for another time, but this all basically has led into the dream. It is a system that is very chaotic. And as a white person living in one of the most leftist liberal areas of the country, I can tell you that I get this crap on a daily basis. Whenever I go out for an Uber ride or do anything, I have been told things by many people in the black community like check your white privilege. Or people, even a woman showed up drunk at 7:30 in the morning, incorrectly used the word exacerbate, and then dared to put her hand on my shoulder and coax me as the uneducated population of the U.S. when she didn't even use the word exacerbate and was acting completely ridiculous. And I don't see that she did that because she's black, but I can see that she's clearly oppressed by her blackness. And this shit is just ridiculous. Stop being oppressed by your color. You can be proud of who you are and willing to accept others without thinking that just because other people wear a different skin color that we deserve any less than you do. Again, back to the table, we were all there. All of us within the system. No matter where we started from or our economic this or that or what we had achieved, we all had to get these basic needs. And some people were suffering more than others. It was clear. And now this doesn't mean that I think that all black people suffer. I don't, but I do think there is a huge problem with the percentage of population who does believe that they're suffering something. And you know what? They are suffering. It's not just a belief, they are suffering. If you have this mental illness and you're suffering, you got to start questioning things and bettering yourself and quit blaming everybody else around you. I'm not saying quit blaming the system because clearly there is a problem. If you're homeless, we need people to be instructed where to go, what to do, how to get help. Don't just sit there and say, well, these services are available and never walk the path yourself. Are they? Are there beds? Are there programs to help? Is this person educated? Where were they educated? Where did it come from? Did they learn in school about the U.S. credit system? Did they learn that they have options? Some people are thrown into adulthood before even the age of 18 with no explanations in school as to the U.S. credit system and what it even is and why they're so afflicted by it. So they make bad decisions, and then later we have people on the right side who have done well for themselves and were able to use their noggin to get through this knowledge, and they expect that this should just be basic human level for everybody. I'm sorry, but there is obviously an IQ difference amongst everyone, and people sometimes just need a little extra step help navigating it. So bringing a person onto one's show or doing something else like to humiliate that person or show how dumb they are or how stupid they're acting is just pointless. help a person get to where they need to be. I think we could use a little bit of social help in this country, and that doesn't mean socialism has to take over. It just means we need to educate people more. We need to help them understand why what they're doing isn't the way to do it. And we need to make the system better. And we all need to remember that just because we don't experience the world in one way doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't, or that their point of view isn't valid or sound. It could be either or. I mean, it really depends. If you don't know the full story, don't just categorize and dump people in that way. Obviously, I'm not going to defend everyone's victimhood or inability to pick up the pieces. Like I said, I'm centrist. Anyway, so thank you if you've made it to this point and have decided to reflect and listen and whatnot, and let me know what you think.